The cleaning lady surprised everyone by speaking Dutch at reception. The millionaire heard, pretended to ignore, but wrote down her name. The next day, she was called to the president's office. What seemed like a mistake turned into the chance of a lifetime. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching us. We continue. It was 6 in the morning when Elena Renault walked through the imposing doors of the Hotel Emperador in Polanco, Mexico City's most luxurious neighborhood. Her silent footsteps echoed through the still empty marble hallways as she carried her general service uniform in a simple bag. At 28, she had already developed a methodical routine. She always arrived half an hour before the start of her shift to study a little Dutch grammar in the small staff room. That particular morning, as Elena flipped through her worn notebook, she unconsciously began humming a French song her mother used to sing. Her memories of Donna Carmela, her only source of love and perseverance, were still painfully fresh. It had been only 8 months since she had left, leaving Elena with a considerable medical debt and a tiny apartment in the Doctores neighborhood. "Bonjour, Mademoiselle Elena," the deep, gentle voice of Professor van der Meer, her former Dutch tutor at UNAM, sounded through her cell phone. Elena smiled as she answered the video call, discreetly adjusting the bun that held back her long black hair. "Guten Morgen, Professor," she replied in perfect Dutch, her melodious voice contrasting with the austere atmosphere of the staff room. "How is Amsterdam? Have the tulips started to bloom yet?" Conversation flowed naturally between Dutch, French, and German, a common practice among them. Professor van der Meer had become more than a mentor. He was her beacon of academic hope, the only one who still believed that she could one day transcend the limitations imposed by her socio-economic reality. "Elena, I have news about that opening at the University of Amsterdam," he began, his blue eyes shining through the screen. "The college is—" A sound of footsteps interrupted the conversation. Elena quickly said goodbye in Dutch, promising to call back later. She put her cell phone in the pocket of her newly worn uniform and prepared to start her workday. What Elena didn't notice, as she was absorbed in her conversation, was the silent presence of a man standing near the half-open door. Daniel Müller, the discreet owner of the Hotel Emperador, had arrived earlier for a meeting with European investors. At 40, Daniel had built a hotel empire based on his ability to observe and analyze details. At that moment, something captured his attention in a unique way: the naturalness with which that employee transitioned between complex languages, the elegance of her posture, even while wearing a simple uniform, the depth of her gaze when she spoke about literature with her teacher. During the day, Daniel discreetly observed Elena as she carried out her tasks. He noticed how she occasionally corrected translation errors in the hotel brochures, always discreetly, leaving small anonymous notes at the reception desk. He noticed how she helped lost tourists, switching between different languages with impressive ease. That afternoon, as Elena was cleaning one of the presidential suites, a heated conversation in German between 2 executives caught her attention. Unaware that she was being observed by Daniel, who had quietly entered the hallway, she muttered to herself, "They are misinterpreting the terms of the contract. The verb used has a completely different connotation in formal German." It was at this moment that Daniel Müller made a decision that would forever change the destiny of this extraordinary young woman. It was not just a question of linguistic talent. It was about recognizing a diamond in the rough, polished by adversity and self-study. The next morning, Elena was surprised by a call from Human Resources. Her heart raced as she climbed the stairs to the 10th floor, an administrative area she had only known from her cleaning duties. Her hands, calloused from hard work, nervously clutched the hem of her uniform. "Señorita Renault, please have a seat," Martha Gonzalez, the HR manager, said, indicating a leather chair. Standing next to her, to Elena's surprise, was Daniel Müller himself. It was the first time she had seen him so close, and there was something in his dark eyes that conveyed a mixture of serenity and determination. "Elena," Daniel began, his voice surprisingly soft, "yesterday I witnessed something extraordinary. How many languages do you speak fluently?" She swallowed hard before answering, 5, sir. Spanish, English, French, German, and Dutch. Her words came out firmly, despite her nervousness. I graduated with honors in literature from UNAM, specializing in comparative linguistics. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his eyes fixed on hers. And why are you working as a cleaning assistant? The question, though direct, carried no judgment. Elena felt, for the first time in a long time, that she could be truly honest. After my mother, after she passed away, I inherited considerable debts. This job allows me to pay them off and continue my education. Every profession has its dignity, Senor Muller. A small smile appeared on Daniel's lips. Exactly the answer I was hoping for, he said, exchanging a meaningful look with Martha. Elena, we're creating a new position, International Relations Assistant. The starting salary will be 3 times the current salary, with full benefits and flexibility for further studies. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena blinked several times, trying to process the information. But why? Because talent and integrity like yours are rare, Daniel replied, standing up. You'll have your own office on the 12th floor. Martha will get you your new corporate wardrobe today. You'll start tomorrow, if you accept. The tears Elena had held back were replaced by fierce determination. I accept, Senor Muller, and I promise you won't regret it. Leaving HR, Elena headed to the locker room to gather her belongings. On the way, she crossed paths with Lucia Mendoza, a fellow member of the cleaning team. The look she received from her was filled with something that Elena couldn't immediately identify, but she would soon discover that it was the beginning of a storm. That evening, in her modest apartment, Elena called Professor van der Meer. Her words came out in an emotional mix of languages as she recounted the day's events. The professor smiled proudly. "Ziet u wel. I always said your time would come, my dear." Meanwhile, on the top floor of the Hotel Emperador, Daniel Muller watched the lights of Mexico City from his penthouse window. In his hands was Elena's impressive resume, which he had requested from the university. Something beyond professional admiration was beginning to awaken in his heart, although he was not yet ready to admit it. The next morning, when Elena walked through the doors of the Hotel Emperador wearing a sleek black business suit, something had fundamentally changed. It wasn't just her outfit or her new name tag that signaled her position. It was her posture, her gaze, her presence. The same determination that had driven her to study 5 languages while cleaning rooms was now propelling her into a new chapter in her life. Elena's adjustment to her new role brought unexpected challenges. Her 12th floor office, overlooking Chapultepec Forest, was a constant reminder of how far she had come. However, the glass walls surrounding her did not protect her from the whispers that were beginning to echo through the hallways of the Hotel Emperador. Lucia Mendoza, her former cleaning colleague, had become the epicenter of a wave of rumors. During coffee breaks, her poisoned words found ears eager for gossip. "Nobody gets a promotion like that overnight without, you know," she insinuated, leaving malicious suggestions in the air about the relationship between Elena and Daniel. Elena noticed a change in the demeanor of some of her employees. Once warm smiles became politely distant. Lunch invitations became rare. Still, she maintained her professional demeanor, focusing on proving her worth through her work. One particularly busy afternoon, Elena was coordinating preparations for an important video conference with European investors. As she checked the equipment, she overheard fragments of a conversation in French between 2 executives in the hallway. "Elle n'est qu'une femme de ménage. She's just a cleaning lady." "Oui, mais comment a-t-elle obtenu ce poste?" "Yes, but how did she get this position?" Taking a deep breath, Elena continued her preparations, letting her work speak for itself. During the video conference, she surprised everyone with her ability to switch seamlessly between different languages, facilitating complex communication between participants from 5 different countries. Later that week, an anonymous letter arrived at the hotel's board of directors. The envelope, typed in Times New Roman, contained formal accusations of an alleged improper relationship between Elena and Daniel. The document suggested that her promotion had been the result of personal favors, not professional merit. Martha Gonzalez, the HR manager, was tasked with conducting an internal investigation. With regret, she called Elena into a delicate meeting. "Señorita Renault, I need you to understand the seriousness of the situation. These accusations could tarnish not only your reputation, but the entire image of the Hotel Emperador." Elena lifted her chin, her eyes shining with a mixture of indignation and determination. "Martha, my mother taught me that the truth always has longer legs than lies. Open a formal investigation. Examine every minute of my work, every decision I've made since I got here. I have nothing to hide." Over the next few weeks, Elena faced intense scrutiny. Every report she produced, every translation she performed, every negotiation she brokered was scrutinized. To her surprise, she discovered silent allies in unexpected places. Carlos, the veteran head of security, volunteered recordings of the day Daniel had observed her speaking Dutch. Sandra, a receptionist, recounted the countless times Elena had discreetly corrected translation errors in hotel materials long before her promotion. In her apartment during lonely nights, Elena found solace in conversations with Professor van der Meer. "Weet je," he would say in Dutch, "sometimes people try to belittle what they cannot understand. Your rise to the top is disturbing because it challenges their expectations of what a woman from humble origins can achieve." It was during this turbulent period that Elena developed a project that would change not only her life, but the lives of many others. While organizing old hotel documents, she discovered that several employees were interested in learning languages, but did not have the resources to study at specialized schools. An idea began to germinate in his mind, something that would turn adversity into opportunity. However, before he could fully develop his plan, a new challenge would present itself: the arrival of a figure from Daniel Muller's past, someone who would threaten not only his professional position, but also the feelings that were beginning to blossom in his heart. The grand ballroom of the Hotel Emperador was ready to welcome a delegation of European investors. Crystals glittered beneath the Art Deco chandeliers, and the tension in the air was palpable. Elena, dressed in an elegant navy blue suit, was reviewing the final details of the presentation when the front door opened. Isabella von Thurn, a stunning woman in her 40s, entered the room as if it were still her home. Her high heels clicked on the marble floor as she walked directly toward Daniel Muller, who was chatting with a few executives near the buffet. "Daniel, my dear," her melodious voice carried an aristocratic accent. "It's been a while. Paris isn't the same without you." The kiss she placed too close to his lips didn't go unnoticed by anyone, especially Elena. Elena watched the scene discreetly as she organized the presentation folders. Isabella was not only a major shareholder in the European group, as Eleanor would later learn through whispered conversations among former employees. She had been engaged to Daniel 5 years earlier. The meeting began promptly at 9 o'clock. Elena took on her role as interpreter with her usual professionalism, translating simultaneously between Spanish, English, and French. Everything was going well until Isabella, with a calculated smile, began asking technical questions in German. "Fräulein Renault," said Isabella, emphasizing her maiden title, "could you please explain to the German investors the tax implications of Clause 17? In formal German, of course. It was a clear trap. Formal business German was known for its technical complexity. Eleanor felt all eyes on her. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Then, with the same calmness her mother had shown when teaching her ancient proverbs, Elena began to explain. Her explanation in German was not just precise, it was elegant. She navigated legal and financial terms with the ease of someone who had been born in Frankfurt, not Mexico City. By the time she was finished, several of the German investors were nodding in approval. "Impressive," said one of them, Dr. Weber, in his native tongue. "Where did the señorita study in Berlin?" "I've never actually been to Germany," Elena replied with a humble smile. "I learned German by studying on my own, at the public library in Doctores, between work shifts." The revelation caused a stir in the room. Isabella, momentarily unhinged, regained her composure and tried to change the focus of the meeting. However, something had changed in the group dynamics. The investors now addressed Elena directly with their questions, confident in her ability to translate and interpret. During the coffee break, Eleanor stepped away to compose herself in the executive bathroom. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted her impeccable bun. In the mirror, she saw Isabella's reflection approaching. "I must admit, you're good," Isabella said in French, touching up her red lipstick. "But being good at languages isn't everything, my dear. This world is much more complex than it seems." Elena maintained her dignity. "Madame von Thurn, I have learned that true complexity lies in remaining whole, regardless of the world we find ourselves in." The rest of the afternoon passed in a delicate dance of power and diplomacy. Elena continued her translations with impeccable precision, all the while watching Isabella's increasingly obvious attempts to regain Daniel's attention. At the end of the day, when the last investors had left, Elena remained in her office, finalizing the meeting reports. That was when Daniel knocked softly on her door. "You were exceptional today," he said, his voice carrying genuine admiration. Elena looked up from her documents. "Thank you, Senor Müller. I just did my job." "No," he took a step forward. "You did much more than that. You showed everyone in that room that excellence has no social origin, no famous surname, no—" He hesitated for a moment. Shared past. The morning after the tense meeting with the European investors, Elena arrived at work early. Her office was still in the shadows as she began to organize her ideas into a document. The project that had been gestating in her mind was finally taking shape on paper. "Bridges of Voices," she typed the working title, a soft smile playing on her lips. The program she was developing was ambitious: to create a language training center within the hotel itself, offering opportunities for young people from underprivileged communities to learn languages and hospitality skills. Elena worked tirelessly on the details of the project all morning. Her own experiences as a multilingual cleaner served as the basis for structuring a program that would not only teach languages, but also provide dignity and real career prospects. As he was finalizing the first draft of the project, a soft knock on his door interrupted his concentration. It was Martha Gonzalez, the HR manager, with a worried expression on her face. "Eleanor, the board of directors has scheduled a special meeting for this afternoon," Martha said, sitting in the chair across from the desk. "Isabella von Thurn has requested a full audit of the International Relations Department. She questions the need for such an expensive staff." Elena felt her heart race, but years of self-discipline helped her maintain her composure. "Martha, what time is the meeting?" "At 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Elena, you must understand that Isabella has considerable influence over European investors. If she—" "I'll be there," Elena interrupted gently, her eyes fixed on the document on her screen. "And I think I have something that could change this whole discussion." The next few hours were spent in intense preparation. Elena refined her presentation, compiled statistical data on the economic impact of multilingualism in the hospitality industry, and most importantly, prepared a detailed financial feasibility study for Bridges of Voices. At 3 o'clock, sharp, the boardroom was packed. Isabella von Thurn took pride of place, wearing an impeccable Chanel ensemble and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel Müller sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of professional neutrality. "Ladies and gentlemen of the council," Isabella began in perfect English, "while I recognize Señorita Renault's linguistic talent, I question the financial prudence of maintaining such an expensive structure in times of resource optimization." Elena watched as some of the councillors nodded in agreement. It was her moment to intervene. "With your permission," she stood, switching smoothly to French, the preferred language of much of the council, "I would like to present a proposal that not only justifies the existence of our department, but also promises to transform the Hotel Emperador into a world reference for social responsibility and corporate innovation." Over the next hour, Eleanor presented Bridges of Voices in 5 different languages, tailoring her explanations to the cultural nuances of each group of advisors. She demonstrated how the program could not only train new talent, but also generate positive publicity, attract international partnerships, and, crucially, reduce operating costs in the long run. Imagine, she concluded, reverting to Spanish, a hotel where every employee, from management to the board, can serve our guests in their native language, where excellence in service is not the privilege of a few, but the result of a conscious investment in dormant potential. The silence that followed was broken by Dr. Weber, the German investor who had been impressed by her the day before. Fräulein Renaud, how long would it take to implement a pilot project? 3 months, Elena replied without hesitation. I have already identified 15 young people with potential in different communities. With the right support, we can begin training immediately. Isabella tried to intervene, but was interrupted by another French advisor. And how much would this pilot project cost? Less than we spend annually on external translators, Elena replied, presenting a detailed comparison chart. In addition, I propose using part of my own salary to fund the first scholarships. This last statement caused a stir in the room. Daniel, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke up. Put it to a vote, now. The Bridges of Voices project was unanimously approved by the Council with only one abstention, Isabella von Thurn. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor threw herself into implementing the pilot project. A training room was set up on the 3rd floor of the hotel, equipped with state-of-the-art technology for language teaching. The 15 young people selected for the first class arrived on a Monday morning, their eyes shining with a mixture of nervousness and hope. Among them was Maria Silas, an 18-year-old girl who worked as a street vendor in front of the Doctores subway station. Señorita Renaud, Maria said after the first English lesson, I never imagined that someone like me could work in a place like this. Elena smiled, recognizing in Maria's words her own past. Like you, Maria, I also come from Doctores. What matters is not where we come from, but where we want to go. The program quickly began to show surprising results. The students, motivated by Elena's story, dedicated themselves to their studies with zeal. After class, it was common to find them practicing languages with each other in the hotel hallways. One afternoon, while supervising a French practice session, Eleanor received an unexpected visitor to her classroom. Daniel Muller entered quietly, sitting in the back of the room to observe. The students, already accustomed to visits from executives, continued their role-playing exercise of checking in on the French. After class, Daniel remained. You know, Elena, when you presented this project, I knew it would be good. But this is transformative. Elena blushed slightly. It's just the beginning, Signor Muller. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. Daniel, he corrected gently. I guess you can call me Daniel after all. The intimate moment was interrupted by Martha Gonzalez, who rushed into the room. Elena, you won't believe it. The BBC wants to do a report on the program. Word of the report spread quickly through the hotel. In the days that followed, Elena worked tirelessly to prepare her students. Maria Silas was chosen as the spokesperson for the first class, her story of overcoming adversity echoing Elena's own. On the day of the recording, the Hotel Emperador was abuzz. The BBC News team attended a full class, interviewed students, and were particularly impressed when Maria conducted a fluent conversation in English about her career aspirations. This show has changed my life, Maria tells the camera, seamlessly switching between English and Spanish. Señorita Renaud has taught us that knowledge is the only thing no one can take away from us. As the film crew captured the final images, Elena watched her students with quiet pride. Suddenly she felt a presence beside her. It was Isabella von Thurn. I must admit, Isabella said quietly, that I underestimated you, and perhaps. She hesitated for a moment. Perhaps I underestimated the power of true social transformation. Elena hadn't expected this moment of vulnerability from Isabella. Before she could respond, an excited buzz went through the room. Maria Silas had just received an email confirming her acceptance to a paid internship program at the hotel reception. The tears in Maria's eyes as she embraced Eleanor in front of the BBC cameras perfectly captured the essence of Bridges of Voices. It wasn't just a training program. It was a real bridge between worlds that had, until then, seemed hopelessly separated. The success of Bridges of Voices brought unexpected visibility to the Hotel Emperador. After the BBC report, other media outlets began seeking Elena out for interviews. The program had become a case study in corporate social responsibility, attracting the attention of business people and academics from around the world. Amidst all this turmoil, something subtle began to change in the dynamic between Eleanor and Daniel. Their professional meetings became more and more frequent, and their conversations inevitably extended beyond hotel matters. During one of these extended meetings, as they discussed expanding the program to other locations in the chain, Daniel began to talk about his own story. "You know, Elena, when I inherited this hotel from my father, it was on the verge of bankruptcy," he confessed, surveying the city through the window of his penthouse. "Everyone expected me to sell it to some international chain, but I believed we could do something different, something meaningful." Elena watched him closely, noticing how his dark eyes took on a special glow when he spoke of his aspirations. "And you have achieved it, Daniel. The Emperador is not just a luxury hotel, it is becoming a symbol of social transformation. Thanks to you," he turned to face her, "you've brought something I never imagined possible, real purpose to this place." The moment was interrupted by an urgent call. Martha Gonzalez needed to speak to both of them. Immediately. In the HR office, the news caught them by surprise. One of the board members had expressed concern about the nature of the relationship between the hotel president and the Bridges of Voices coordinator. "People are talking," Martha said, visibly uncomfortable. "After the success of the program, you've been spending a lot of time together. The board is concerned that this might compromise the credibility of the project." Elena felt her blood run cold. All her hard work, all the progress she had made with Bridges of Voices, could be tarnished by rumors and speculation. Daniel, for his part, remained silent for long moments. "Martha," he finally spoke, his voice carrying a decision already made. "Schedule a special council meeting for tomorrow morning." That night, Elena could barely sleep. Her mind was filled with worries about the future of the program and confusing thoughts about her feelings for Daniel. A video call from Professor van der Meer brought some comfort. "Mijn lieve kind," said in Dutch, "sometimes fate puts us at difficult crossroads not to test us, but to show us who we really are." The next morning, the council chamber was packed. Daniel took his usual place at the head of the table, but his posture indicated that something important was about to happen. Elena sat in her assigned seat, trying to maintain the professional composure that had always characterized her. "Gentlemen," Daniel began, his voice firm and clear, "we are here to discuss rumors about my relationship with Señorita Renaud. Before unfounded speculation compromises the extraordinary work she has done, I have an announcement to make." The silence in the room was palpable. Elena could feel her heart beating so loudly that she feared everyone could hear it. "Effective. Immediately, I am temporarily stepping down as president of Hotel Emperador," Daniel said. "Our executive vice president, Carmen Ortiz, will assume full operational control. This decision is irrevocable and is intended solely to protect the integrity of Pontes de Voces and the exceptional work of Señorita Renaud." The room erupted in whispers and hushed exclamations. Eleanor sat motionless in her chair, processing the meaning of that gesture. Daniel continued, "During my absence, I will only maintain my position on the board, without executive powers. In this way, we eliminate any perception of favoritism or conflict of interest. Pontes de Voces is bigger than any of us. It is a legacy that needs to be protected." Daniel's decision triggered a wave of changes at the Hotel Emperador. Carmen Ortiz, the new CEO, was a respected professional with 20 years of experience in the hotel industry. Her first action was to expand Ponte de Voces to 2 other units of the chain in Latin America. Elena found an unexpected ally in Carmen. The new president not only supported the program, but also brought a valuable female perspective to its implementation. Elena, Carmen said during one of their first meetings. We need to turn this project into an internationally replicable model. The weeks that followed were intense. Elena developed detailed program manuals in 5 languages, established partnerships with local universities, and created a mentoring system where more advanced students helped beginners. Maria Silas, now an official receptionist intern, became an inspiring role model for new participants. One particularly busy afternoon, while Elena was finalizing the documentation for the program's expansion, she received a surprise visit from Isabella von Thurn. Elena, Isabella began without her usual air of superiority, I came to say goodbye. I sold my shares in the hotel. Elena looked up from her papers, genuinely surprised. Isabella continued, I've come to realize that some battles don't need to be won. They need to be transcended. What you've built here, it's extraordinary. And Daniel, she paused meaningfully. Daniel has never been so certain of a decision as he is right now. Before Elena could respond, Isabella left an elegant envelope on her desk. It's an invitation. The European Commission is organizing a forum on social innovation in Amsterdam. They want you to be the keynote speaker. Elena's heart raced. Amsterdam, the city where her mentor, Professor van der Meer, lived. The city that had always represented her deepest academic dreams. Thank you, Isabella, Elena said sincerely, for everything. Don't thank me, Isabella replied with a genuine smile. Just keep proving me right. The following week, during a video conference with Professor van der Meer to discuss the details of her upcoming presentation in Amsterdam, Elena received another surprising piece of news. The University of Amsterdam was interested in establishing a formal partnership with Bridges of Voices, offering scholarships to the program's most outstanding students. Elena, the professor said, his blue eyes shining through the screen, they also want you to coordinate the university's outreach program. You could spend a few months each year here, expanding the model to Europe. The possibility of combining her work at the hotel with an academic career, something she had considered impossible after her mother's departure, now presented itself as a tangible reality. That night, while organizing her notes for the presentation in Amsterdam, Elena received a text from Daniel. Can we talk? On the roof garden. The rooftop garden of the Hotel Emperador was an oasis suspended above the city. There, among the carefully cultivated orchids and ferns, Daniel waited. His face, illuminated by the soft afternoon light, exuded a serenity Elena had never seen before. I heard about the Amsterdam proposal, he began. It's an incredible opportunity. Daniel, Wait, he interrupted her gently. Before you say anything, I need you to know. My stepping down as chairman wasn't just to protect your reputation or the program. It was because I realized that some feelings are too big to be contained by titles or corporate hierarchy. The terrace of the Hotel Emperador seemed to float over Mexico City that night. The air was scented with orchids, and the evening light painted the sky in shades of pink and orange. Elena and Daniel were silent for a few moments, letting the weight of his words settle between them. All these years running this hotel, Daniel continued, his voice soft against the distant murmur of the city. I thought I knew everything about excellence and quality standards. Then you came along, and I realized there was so much more to learn. Elena felt her heart race, but she maintained the composure that had always characterized her. Daniel, everything we've built here, the Pontes de Voces, the transformations in the hotel, we can't risk that by feelings? Added, taking a step toward her. Elena, it was precisely because of feelings that all this became possible. Your passion for languages, your compassion for students, your dedication to your work, all of this comes from the heart. The gentle breeze ruffled Elena's loose hair, which had been torn from its formal bun after a long day of work. En Dios. The streets below the city lights began to light up one by one, like urban stars. Tomorrow you leave for Amsterdam, Daniel said. I know the university has made you a tempting offer, and you deserve every opportunity you're getting. I'm not here to complicate your decision, but to make it clearer. Elena watched him carefully, noticing how his dark eyes reflected the golden light of the sunset. Daniel continued, "In these months away from the presidency, I have had time to reflect on many things. The hotel is in excellent hands with Carmen, the program is growing sustainably, and I finally understand what really matters." At that moment, sounds of music and laughter reached them from the event hall downstairs. It was the graduation of the second class of Bridges of Voices. Elena smiled, recognizing the voices of her students singing in different languages. "Listen to this," she said softly. 2 years ago, many of them barely spoke formal Spanish. Now they're singing in French, English, German. "And this is just the beginning," Daniel added. "Elena, the Amsterdam proposal doesn't have to be a farewell to what we've built here. It can be an expansion, an even bigger bridge." Elena stared at him, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "The Emperador chain is planning to open its first European location," he revealed. "And guess which city?" Elena's eyes widened in understanding. "Amsterdam?" Daniel smiled. "The contract was signed yesterday. Carmen will oversee the operation from here, but we'll need someone to set international standards of care, implement Bridges of Voices on a European scale, and," he paused meaningfully, "create a formal partnership with the University of Amsterdam." Elena felt her legs weaken slightly. All the pieces were beginning to fall into place. The university's proposal, Isabella's sale of shares, the perfect timing of the international expansion. "Did you plan all this?" she asked, half in awe and half in emotion. "No," Daniel replied honestly. "I just realized that sometimes the universe conspires in favor of those who have the courage to dream big and the heart to make a difference." From the hall below, the music had changed to a soft Dutch melody, the same one Elena had used to sing in her early days as a cleaning lady. Her eyes filled with tears as she recognized the song. "My mother always said that life has a way of surprising us," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "That when we think we've lost everything, we're actually just at the beginning of something bigger." Daniel stepped closer, his eyes fixed on hers. "And what do you think your mother would say now?" Eleanor smiled through her tears. "She would say that some stories are so beautiful that they need to be told in every language in the world." Mexico City International Airport was especially busy that Thursday morning. A small crowd had gathered near the boarding gate for Amsterdam, Puente de Vozes students, hotel staff, and friends who had come to say goodbye to Elena. Maria Silas, now a respected bilingual receptionist, organized a small surprise celebration. The students took turns giving impromptu speeches in different languages, demonstrating in practice the success of the program. "Señorita Renaud," Maria said in impeccable English, "you taught us that dreams have no boundaries. Now it's your turn to expand your horizons." Carmen Ortiz was also there, carrying a folder with the latest details of the contract for the new Amsterdam unit. "Elena," she said with a motherly smile, "the Emperor will never be the same after you, but now it's time to conquer new territories." Professor van der Meer, who had flown in from Mexico, especially to accompany Elena on her first week at the University of Amsterdam, watched the scene with fatherly pride. "Weetje," he said to no one in particular, "sometimes we need to see our students surpass their teachers to understand the true meaning of teaching." The airport PA system announced priority boarding for KLM Flight 686 to Amsterdam. Eleanor began to say goodbye to everyone, receiving hugs, cards, and small gifts. When it was Daniel's turn, a respectful silence fell over the group. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small, elegantly wrapped package. Eleanor opened it carefully. Inside was a handmade notebook, bound in embossed leather. On the first page, an inscription in delicate calligraphy read, "To record the next chapters of our story, in all the languages of love." "I'll be there in 2 weeks," Daniel whispered, only for her to hear, for the official opening of the Emperador Amsterdam. The final boarding call sounded over the loudspeakers. Eleanor grabbed her hand luggage, which contained detailed plans for the international implementation of Bridges of Voices, and her presentation to the European Commission Forum. As she walked down the departure hall, Eleanor thought of her mother How proud she would be to see her daughter not only achieving her dreams, but helping others achieve theirs. The simple apartment in Doctores, the mornings studying at the public library, the cleaning shifts at the hotel, every step had been necessary to get here. From the airplane window, Eleanor watched Mexico City gradually shrink beneath the clouds. The morning sun illuminated the metropolis, making the Hotel Emperador shine like a beacon among the buildings. In her hands, the notebook given to her by Daniel held blank pages, waiting to be filled with new dreams, new challenges, and new achievements. Damas y caballeros, came the flight attendant's voice in Spanish, followed by translations in English and Dutch. Welcome to KLM Flight 686 bound for Amsterdam. Elena smiled, recognizing in the multilingual ad an echo of her own journey. From a young woman who cleaned rooms by whispering words in different languages, she had transformed into a woman who helped others find their voice in the world. The plane took off smoothly, carrying Elena toward the next chapter of her life. In her purse, along with her passport and hotel documents, was an old photo of her and her mother, smiling, in front of the public library where it all began. On the cam, back of the photograph, handwritten, was a proverb her mother had always repeated: "Dreams speak all the languages of the heart." The scent of tulips in bloom filled the Dutch morning air. Elena watched the boats move along the canals through the window of her new office at the Hotel Emperador Amsterdam, a meticulously restored 17th-century historic building in the heart of the Jordan. 2 weeks had passed since her arrival, and each day brought new discoveries. Adapting to the new country flowed naturally, facilitated by her command of the language and the unconditional support of Professor van der Meer, who had introduced her to the city's leading academic circles. Elena, the excited voice of Sophie, her Dutch assistant, interrupted her thoughts. The first candidates for the European program Bridges of Voices have arrived, and there is a special surprise among them. In the lobby, a diverse group of young people waited anxiously. Among them, Elena immediately recognized a familiar figure: Aisha, the youngest daughter of Lucia Mendoza, her former colleague at the Hotel Emperador in Mexico. "Señorita Renaud," Aisha said in Spanish, her eyes shining with emotion. "My mother, and she asked me to give you this." In her hands was a plain envelope containing a handwritten letter. Elena sat in her office to read Lucia's message. "Dear Elena, time teaches us valuable lessons. I have watched from afar as you have, transformed lives through bridges of voices, and my heart is filled with regret for ever having doubted you. Aisha has dreamed of studying languages since she attended her first class in the program in Mexico. I ask that you give her the opportunity that you did not know how to appreciate when you offered it to others. With admiration and apologies, Lucia." Moved, Elena put the letter away in her drawer. Life had surprising ways of closing circles and healing old wounds. The morning passed with a succession of interviews with the candidates. Elena conducted each conversation in the interviewee's native language, a practice that had become a trademark of the show. Aisha, to her surprise, already spoke considerable English, having secretly learned through online videos. During lunch, Elena received a call from Carmen Ortiz in Mexico. "The first quarter numbers are in, Elena. Bridges of Voices has not only paid for itself, but has generated invaluable image returns. The board is considering expanding the program to our future Paris location." The news was excellent, but Elena barely had time to celebrate. An important meeting awaited her at the University of Amsterdam. Professor van der Meer had arranged a meeting with the Outreach Committee to discuss the formal integration of the university and the hotel program. In the majestic university building, Elena presented her proposal for an innovative undergraduate course, World Hospitality and Intercultural Communication. The program would combine academic theory with professional practice, using the Hotel Emperador as a living laboratory for learning. "It's extraordinary," the dean commented after the presentation. "You are effectively democratizing access to language education and high-end hospitality." Late that afternoon, as Elena was organizing the last notes in her new notebook, Daniel's Gift, she received a message on her cell phone. It was a photo from the Mexico City airport. Daniel boarding his flight to Amsterdam. "See you in a few hours," the message read. "I can't wait to meet the show's new talent in person, especially Lucia's daughter. What an incredible story of redemption." Elena smiled, thinking about how her own story of resilience had inspired others to believe in their dreams. From her window, she could see the last rays of the Dutch sun turning the canals golden, while couples strolled hand in hand across the historic bridges. Sophie entered the office silently. "Elena, the architect wants to confirm some details of the renovation of the old warehouse. It will be the new training center for Bridges of Voices." "Sure," Elena replied, picking up her briefcase. Before leaving, she paused for a moment in front of the newly installed mural on the wall of her office. It featured photos of the program's graduates in Mexico, along with images of Amsterdam's canals and inspirational quotes in several languages. In the center of the mural, a quote in Dutch perfectly captured the spirit of their journey. "Taal is de brug tussen harten." Language is the bridge between hearts. Schiphol Airport was particularly busy that spring evening. Elena waited anxiously near the arrivals gate, watching the passengers arriving from the flight from Mexico City. Her heart raced when she saw Daniel, elegant as ever in his dark suit, walking through the automatic doors. "Welcome to Amsterdam," she greeted him with a smile, noticing how his eyes lit up when he saw her. "Your Dutch pronunciation is even better," he replied, pulling her into a warm hug. On the way to the hotel, Elena updated Daniel on the latest developments, the arrival of the new students, including Aisha, Lucia's letter, the partnership with the university. Daniel listened attentively, occasionally asking insightful questions about the practicalities of implementation. "You know," he said as they crossed one of the city's historic bridges, "when you started the program in Mexico, some members of the council saw it as a charity project. Now it's a case study in sustainable business innovation." The Hotel Emperador Amsterdam stood majestically before them, its lighted windows reflecting in the waters of the canal. In the lobby, Sophie was waiting with a surprise. The students of the first Dutch class had prepared a small welcome reception. "Señor Muller," Aisha said, taking the initiative to greet him in Spanish, "it is an honor to meet you in person. My mother told me about your vision in supporting Bridges of Voices from the beginning." Daniel smiled, genuinely touched. "The real vision was always of Señorita Renault. I was just lucky enough to recognize her in time." After the reception, Elena took Daniel on a tour of the new training center under construction. The former warehouse was being transformed into a modern, welcoming space with technology-enabled classrooms and multicultural community areas. "And here," she indicated a large space on the first floor, "will be our multilingual library. We have already received donations of books from several embassies." Elena, Daniel interrupted her gently, touching her arm. "I need to tell you something." She turned to him, noticing an unusual seriousness in his expression. "Carmen called me earlier today. The board has approved not only the expansion to Paris, but also to London and Berlin. They want Ponte de Voces to be the flagship of the Emperador brand in Europe." Elena felt her eyes fill with tears of joy. "Daniel, this is amazing." "There's more," he continued, guiding her to the window. That offered a stunning view of the canals. "The university doesn't just want a partnership for a course. They want to create an entire institute dedicated to multilingual education and social inclusion through hospitality, and they want you to be the academic director." The setting sun in Amsterdam painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, creating a perfect backdrop for that moment. Elena looked out the window, watching the boats gliding gently through the canals, carrying tourists enchanted by the beauty of the city. "Do you know what that means?" she asked, her voice cracking with emotion. "We can really change lives. On a global scale, not just in the hotel industry, but across the entire tourism and hospitality industry." Daniel stepped closer, his gaze fixed on hers. "It means that the young woman I met cleaning rooms and studying Dutch in secret has become one of the most innovative educators in Europe, and I couldn't be more proud." At that moment, Sounds of music and laughter reached them from downstairs. The students had begun an impromptu multicultural celebration, singing and chatting in a joyful mix of languages. "Just listen," Elena smiled, "to the sound of the future we built together." The Amsterdam Conference Center was packed with leading figures from the academic and business worlds. The International Social Innovation Forum had attracted participants from all continents, and Elena, as the keynote speaker, felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Backstage in the main auditorium, she adjusted her navy blue blazer. As she mentally reviewed her presentation, Professor van der Meer approached, carrying 2 cups of Dutch coffee. "Nervous, mein Lieber?" he asked, handing her one of the cups. "A little," Eleanor admitted, smiling, "but it's a good kind of nervousness, like the kind I felt before my Dutch exams at university." The professor laughed, remembering those times. "And now here you are, about to show the world how a simple idea can transform hundreds of lives." In the auditorium, the first few rows were filled with familiar faces. Daniel, elegant in his gray suit. Carmen Ortiz, who had come especially from Mexico. Sophie, his devoted assistant. And, to his surprise, Maria Silas, now the reception manager at the Hotel Emperador Mexico. Elena's presentation was scheduled to last an hour, but its impact would extend far beyond that time. She seamlessly switched between 5 different languages, keeping the audience captivated as she shared the journey of bridges of voices. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began in English, "2 years ago, a simple conversation in Dutch changed my life. Today I am here to show you how that one individual change has turned into a revolution in the way we think about education, hospitality, and social inclusion." The images on the screen behind her showed the concrete results of the program. Young people from underprivileged communities transformed into multilingual professionals, employability statistics, moving testimonials from students and their families. "More than a language program," she continued, switching to French. "Pontes de Voces is living proof that talent and potential exist everywhere. What is often lacking are opportunities." During the Q&A session, a German journalist raised her hand. "Frau Renaud, how do you respond to criticism that corporate social programs are just marketing strategies?" Elena smiled, remembering similar conversations at the beginning of the project. "Wenn Sie einen unserer Absolventen treffen," when you meet one of our graduates, she replied in flawless German, gesturing for Maria Silas to stand. Maria, confident and elegant, took the microphone and shared her story in 3 different languages, drawing spontaneous applause from the audience. By the end of the presentation, a line of business people and educators had formed to speak to Elena. Hotel representatives from Dubai to Sydney were expressing interest in implementing local versions of the program. "Elena," Professor van der Meer called, pushing his way through the admiring crowd, "the Queen of the Netherlands was impressed by your presentation. She wants to meet you in person tomorrow to discuss the possibility of expanding the program to Dutch public schools." The news took Elena by surprise. Her gaze met Daniel's in the crowd, and she saw in him the same pride and admiration as she had the first day he had heard her speak Dutch at the Hotel Emperador. Later, during the closing cocktail party, Elena found a moment of stillness on one of the conference center's terraces. The sun was setting over Amsterdam's canals, painting the sky in shades of amber. "I knew I'd find you here," Daniel said, joining her. "You always look for a quiet place after great achievements." "I'm thinking about my mother," Elena confessed, her voice soft against the distant hum of the city. "How she saved up to buy me used language books. How she always said that education was the one asset no one could take away from us." The next morning dawned with a gentle Amsterdam drizzle. Elena prepared for her meeting with the Queen of the Netherlands at the Royal Palace, while reflecting on the events of the previous day. The conference had been a success beyond all expectations, with offers of partnerships pouring in from many countries. In her office at the Hotel Emperador Amsterdam, she found a bouquet of yellow tulips, her favorite, with a card from Daniel, "To the woman who taught the world that dreams have no boundaries." Sophie hurried in, carrying a folder with the latest reports from the program. Elena, you won't believe this. The BBC is doing a special report on the impact of bridges of voices in Europe. They interviewed Aisha this morning. How did she do? Eleanor asked, adjusting her pearl necklace, an old gift from her mother. Brilliantly, Sophie replied, her blue eyes shining with excitement. She talked about how the program is helping to heal old family wounds, about how her mother, Lucia, is now actively involved in English classes in Mexico. The phone rang. It was Carmen Ortiz from Mexico. Elena, the board has just unanimously approved the creation of the Bridges of Voices Foundation. It will be a non-profit organization dedicated to expanding the program globally. The news made Elena sit up, overcome with emotion. The foundation was a dream she had hardly dared to share. The possibility of institutionalizing the program, ensuring its continuity regardless of corporate changes. Carmen, this is extraordinary, she replied, her voice breaking. Who will preside over the foundation? The council wants it to be you, Elena, with complete autonomy to implement your vision on a global scale. Before Elena could fully process the news, Professor van der Meer arrived to escort her to the royal palace. Along the way, through the historic streets of Amsterdam, he shared more news. The university wants to create a specific chair for studies of social inclusion through multilingual education, he said, his Dutch accent thick with emotion. And they want to name it after your mother, the Carmela Renault chair. Elena felt silent tears streaming down her face. The teacher, who had become a father figure in her life, held her hand affectionately. Wietje, he said softly, your mother always knew you would do something extraordinary. She told me so once when she came to thank me for the Dutch scholarship I got for you. At the royal palace, while waiting to be received by the Queen, Eleanor looked at the historical portraits on the walls, people who, over the centuries, had left their mark on the history of the Netherlands. Thoughtful? Daniel's voice surprised her. He had been invited to the meeting as an official representative of the Emperador Hotel. I'm thinking about how life takes turns, she replied, tucking a strand of hair that had escaped from her bun. 3 years ago I was cleaning rooms and studying in secret. Today you are transforming lives and making history, he added, coming closer. And do you know what's most incredible? You are still the same Elena I knew, humble, dedicated, and with a huge heart. A palace official appeared to lead them into the audience room. Before they entered, Daniel gently grabbed Elena's arm. After the meeting, I need to tell you something important. Something I've been planning since I arrived in Amsterdam. Elena looked at him curiously, but before she could respond, the majestic doors opened. It was time to present to the Queen of the Netherlands how a simple phone call in Dutch had turned into a global movement for social change. The meeting with the Queen of the Netherlands had been an unqualified success. Her Majesty not only endorsed the expansion of Bridges of Voices into the Dutch education system, but also suggested presenting the program at the next European Union summit. Leaving the royal palace, Eleanor and Daniel strolled through the EI historic gardens, the scent of spring flowers filling the air. The normally cloudy Amsterdam sky was a rare crystal blue. So, Eleanor broke the silence, what did you want to tell me? Daniel smiled mysteriously. Not here. I have a special place in mind. They took a private boat along the canals, sailing through the city until they reached a spot Elena didn't know. The boat docked near a historic 17th century building, its tall windows reflecting the light of the setting sun. What is this place? Elena asked as Daniel helped her disembark. This, he replied, opening a wrought iron gate, is the future International Institute of Bridges of Voices. Elena stood there, her mouth agape. The building was magnificent, with architecture typical of the Dutch Golden Age. A small inner garden housed an ancient fountain, and the red brick walls told stories of centuries. Daniel, how? I bought this building 3 months ago, he explained, guiding her through the interior. I've been waiting for the right moment to show you around. Every detail was designed with the program in mind. Classrooms, language labs, multicultural living spaces. As they toured the spaces, Daniel described his vision, an international center that would combine the headquarters of the Pontes De Vose's Foundation, the university's research institute and a cultural space open to the community. On the top floor, a surprise awaited Elena. A room had been specially decorated to recreate the public library where she used to study in Mexico. On the shelves were copies of the same language books her mother had bought for her. "How did you manage to find these editions?" she asked excitedly, touching the worn cover of her old Dutch textbook. "Professor van der Meer helped me. He kept a list of all the books you used during your studies." Elena ran her fingers through the bookshelves, memories of her journey coming back full force. In one corner, an enlarged photo showed her and her mother in front of the library in Mexico. "But there's more," Daniel said, leading her to a balcony that overlooked one of Amsterdam's most beautiful canals. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Elena," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "when I met you that morning at the hotel, something inside me changed forever. It wasn't just your intelligence or your gift for languages that captivated me. It was your strength, your dignity, your ability to dream big even when the world seemed too small." He paused, pulling something from his jacket pocket. "Over the past few months, as I've watched you turn bridges of voices into a global movement, I've realized that some feelings are like the languages you speak, rich, deep, and capable of transcending any border." Elena felt her heart race as Daniel got down on one knee, presenting a delicate sapphire ring. "Elena Renaud, would you do me the honor of building a life together? In all the languages of love." Silent tears streamed down Elena's face as she gazed at the ring, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds, reminiscent of the design of the first library where she studied Dutch. Before he could respond, a movement in the garden below caught his attention. Everyone was there. Professor van der Meer, Sophie, Carmen Ortiz, who had flown in secret from Mexico, Maria Silas, Aisha, and dozens of students from the program, each holding a small flashlight. "They came from everywhere," Daniel explained, still kneeling. "Because you touched each of their lives, just like you touched mine." Eleanor's yes echoed in 5 different languages, drawing smiles and applause from the small crowd gathered in the garden. The lanterns were lit one by one, creating a spectacle of light that reflected on the calm waters of the canal. Professor van der Meer was the first to step onto the balcony, his cheeks flushed with emotion. "Mein doctor," he said, hugging Elena. "Like a father, your heart has always spoken all the languages of love." The evening turned into an impromptu celebration. In the Institute's indoor garden, tables were set up with typical dishes from various countries brought by the ESI program students. Maria Silas led a group that sang songs in different languages, while Aisha surprised everyone with a moving speech in perfect Dutch. Carmen Ortiz, always practical even in the most emotional moments, approached the couple with a folder in her hands. "The timing couldn't be better," she smiled. "The council has just approved the expansion of the program to 10 new cities. Paris, Berlin, London, Barcelona, Vienna." "Carmen," Daniel interrupted gently, "this can wait until tomorrow. Today is a day to celebrate love in all languages." Sophie came up with an additional surprise, a live video call with the program's students in Mexico. On the big screen set up in the garden, dozens of familiar faces jostled to offer their congratulations, including Lucia Mendoza, who couldn't hold back her tears. "Señorita Renaud," Lucia said, her voice breaking, "you have not only built bridges between languages but also between hearts. My Aisha taught me that." As the night wore on, Elena and Daniel found a moment of stillness near the ancient fountain. The sapphire ring glowed softly on her hand, reflecting the light from the lanterns. "You know," she said softly, "my mother always said, that true love is like a universal language. It doesn't need translation." Daniel smiled, intertwining his fingers with hers. "And what else did she say?" "That life sometimes prepares us surprises that surpass our wildest dreams." When I started studying languages at the Doctor's Public Library, I never imagined that it would take me here. A group of students approached, each carrying a small box. Inside, they later discovered, were seeds of flowers typical of their home countries to be planted in the Institute's garden. So that love can blossom in all languages, explained Maria, now fluent in Dutch. Professor van der Meer raised his glass in a toast to Elena and Daniel, who taught us that love, like knowledge, knows no boundaries. Glasses clinked under the starry Amsterdam sky. Elena looked around at the unlikely family that had formed through bridges of voices, students, faculty, staff, all united by the same vision of a world where opportunity and understanding transcend language and social barriers. "What now?" Daniel asked softly, just for her to hear. Elena smiled, her eyes shining with the promise of the future. "Now we begin a new chapter, in all the languages of the heart." Sophie approached discreetly. "Elena, sorry to interrupt, but there is a special surprise waiting for you in the auditorium." On the way there, Elena and Daniel passed the mural where, years earlier in Mexico, she had pinned her first note, correcting a hotel translation. Now that same mural had been recreated, but with one significant difference. It was covered with messages of love and gratitude in dozens of different languages. 3 months had passed since the engagement, and the International Institute of Voices Bridges was about to officially open. Eleanor was overseeing the final preparations in her new office, a cozy space overlooking the indoor gardens where the seeds donated by students were already beginning to sprout. "Elena," Sophie rushed in, carrying a stack of documents. "The international exam results came in. You won't believe it. 100% pass." It was an extraordinary achievement. The students in the program's first European class had taken the most rigorous language proficiency tests, and all had passed with distinction. "Where's Aisha?" Elena asked, looking for the young woman who had become something of a symbol of the show. "She needs to know this first." "He's giving an interview to Le Monde," Sophie replied proudly. "In perfect French, I might add." The sound of soft music began to echo through the historic halls of the Institute. In the main auditorium, students were rehearsing for the inauguration ceremony, a multilingual performance that would include songs and poetry in 12 different languages. Eleanor walked into the old library, now transformed into a space of remembrance and inspiration. The shelves still held the books of her youth, but now shared space with modern publications and cutting-edge technology. On a special wall, photos told the story of the program, from its early days in Mexico to its international expansion. Professor van der Meer found her there, contemplating a private photo, she and her mother, smiling in front of the Doctores public library. "Thinking about her?" he asked softly in Dutch. "Always," Elena replied, touching the photograph affectionately. "Especially now." The teacher smiled knowingly. "Have you told Daniel yet?" Elena instinctively put her hand to her belly, still imperceptibly changed. "Not yet. I'm waiting for the right moment." "And when would that be?" Daniel's voice surprised them both. He was standing at the door holding a bouquet of yellow tulips. Elena turned around, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I was going to tell you tonight, after the last meeting with the Foundation Council. But I guess the universe had other plans." Professor van der Meer quietly withdrew, leaving the couple alone in the historic library. Daniel approached Elena, his eyes shining with excitement. "So?" he began, his voice shaking slightly. "So?" Elena smiled, taking his hand and placing it on her belly. "In 7 months we will have 2 new language students in the program." "2?" Daniel asked, his eyes widening. "Twins," Elena confirmed, laughing at her fiancé's surprised expression. "Apparently they were destined to be bilingual from the start." Daniel hugged her carefully, as if she were made of the most precious crystal. Silent tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "I love you," in all the languages he had learned from her. The moment was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Carmen Ortiz had arrived from Mexico for the opening, bringing with her a special surprise. "Elena, dear," she said, stepping into the library, "I brought something you need to see before the ceremony." In her hands was an old book with a red cover, the diary of Donna Carmela, Elena's mother. "Lucia found this while organizing donations for the community library in Doctores. Your mother left specific instructions that it be given to you when the time was right." Elena took the diary with trembling hands. On the first page, her mother's elegant handwriting danced across the yellowed paper. My dear Elena, if you are reading this, it means that your dreams have taken on even greater wings than we ever imagined. I hold here not only memories, but also my unwavering faith in your extraordinary destiny. And now, as you prepare for your own journey into motherhood, I want to share with you the lessons I have learned about love, courage, and the transformative power of education. Donna Carmela's words in her diary were like an embrace through time. Elena spent the afternoon immersed in the pages, discovering a whole new dimension of her mother, her dreams, her fears, her unwavering strength. The diary was filled with newspaper clippings about language courses, notes on how to save up for books, and most importantly, deep reflections on the future she imagined for her daughter. My Elena learns languages like breathing, ready. An entry dated when she was just 12. Today I found her teaching English to the neighborhood children, using chalk and the wall of the building as a blackboard. Her heart has always been that of a teacher. Daniel found Eleanor still absorbed in her reading, her eyes brimming with tears. I found something special for the babies, he said softly, holding up 2 small multilingual children's books, to get us started early. Elena smiled, closing the diary carefully. Mama knew, she said, pointing to one of the last entries. She wrote here that one day I would not only learn languages, but use this gift to build bridges between people. And now you're about to open an international institute, Daniel added, expecting twins and transforming lives on a global scale. A growing buzz in the garden caught his attention. Guests for the inauguration ceremony were beginning to arrive. Representatives of universities, diplomats, students, and their families all gathered to celebrate the official institutionalization of Bridges of Voices. Elena prepared for the ceremony with special care, choosing a navy blue dress that discreetly accommodated her newly discovered pregnancy. Her mother's pearl necklace completed the look, as always. In the indoor garden, now transformed into an open-air auditorium, hundreds of people waited. The flowers planted by the students 3 months earlier formed a colorful carpet, their petals dancing gently in the afternoon breeze. Professor Vandermeer opened the ceremony with a moving speech in 5 languages. Maria Silas and Aisha then presented the impressive results of the program, switching seamlessly between different languages. When it was Elena's turn to speak, she surprised everyone by starting with a quote from her mother's diary. Dreams. Speak all the languages of the heart, she read, her voice clear and emotional. My mother wrote this 15 years ago, when she saw me studying Dutch by candlelight because we couldn't afford the electric bill. Today we are here to inaugurate not just an institute, but a living symbol of that truth. She paused, her hand unconsciously resting on her belly. And today I have the privilege of announcing that Bridges of Voices is about to gain 2 very special new students who are already learning the universal language of love. The news was greeted with emotional applause. Carmen Ortiz, ever practical, discreetly wiped away her tears. Professor Vandermeer smiled like a proud grandfather. This institute, Elena continued, will be more than a center of learning. It will be a home for dreamers, a beacon for those who, like me one day, clean hotel rooms whispering words in distant languages. It will be a living testament to the fact that knowledge, when shared with love, has the power to transform not only lives but entire generations. 6 months have passed since the opening of the International Institute of Voices Bridges. Autumn was painting the trees of Amsterdam in golden hues, and Elena, now 8 months pregnant, was overseeing preparations for the program's first international graduation. The institute had become a true multicultural hub. Conversations in dozens of different languages flowed through the historic hallways. The indoor garden, now in full bloom, had become a favorite meeting place for students who gathered to practice their languages and share stories. Elena, Sophie called, entering the office with a stack of documents. The latest statistics for the program have come in. We now have 1,200 students in 10 different countries. Eleanor smiled, stroking her prominent belly where the twins were moving actively. And to think that it all started with 15 young people in Mexico. Professor Vandermeer, who now divided his time between the university and the institute, entered, carrying a special gift, 2 handmade musical mobiles, each playing lullabies in different languages. For the little polyglots, he smiled, his blue eyes shining with excitement, so they can dream in every language from the cradle. That afternoon, Eleanor was chairing a special meeting of the Foundation's board. Bridges of Voices was about to take a new leap. UNESCO had expressed interest in adopting the program as a global model for inclusive education. It's an extraordinary opportunity, Carmen Ortiz explained via video conference. We can impact millions of lives. As the meeting progressed, Elena absently leafed through her mother's diary, which she always kept close at hand. One entry in particular caught her eye. Today, Elena asked me why some people have more opportunities than others. Instead of answering, I gave her a new French book, because true equality begins when we open doors of knowledge to everyone. Daniel's voice brought her back to the present. Honey, it's time. The graduates are arriving for dress rehearsal. In the main auditorium, 50 students from the first international class were preparing for the ceremony the next day. Among them was Aisha, who had become the assistant coordinator of the program in Amsterdam. Señorita Renaud, Aisha said, approaching with an envelope in her hands, we have just received confirmation. The University of Oxford wants to implement the program next semester. Elena watched with pride as the graduates rehearsed their multilingual presentation. Each represented a story of transformation, a dream realized, a bridge built between once distant worlds. Maria Silas, who had flown in from Mexico especially for the graduation, joined her in the audience. You know, Elena, the other day I found my old street vendor badge. I kept it to show my future students that dreams don't have an expiration date. The rehearsal was interrupted by an emotional surprise. Lucia Mendoza, Aisha's mother, had arrived unannounced. Even more surprising was hearing her greet her daughter in hesitant but determined English. Hello, my daughter. I am learning too. Elena felt the babies move energetically, as if they also wanted to participate in that moment of celebration. Daniel, who was never far away, immediately approached to support her. They already recognize when people are speaking in different languages, Elena joked, guiding Daniel's hand to feel the movements. I think they inherited the gift from the family. That evening, after everyone had left, Elena stayed a moment longer at the institute. In the library that recreated her first study space, she found a quiet space to write a letter, one that her children would read in the future. My beloved, as I eagerly await your arrival, I want to share with you the story of your grandmother, Carmela, a woman who taught me that love is the most universal language of all. The big day of the international graduation finally arrived. The Pontes de Vozes International Institute was magnificently decorated with flowers from all the countries participating in the program. In the internal garden, where it all began with a marriage proposal a few months earlier, hundreds of guests gathered for the ceremony. Elena, radiant in a sky-blue dress that accentuated her advanced pregnancy, watched the action from her her room in the library. Professor Vandermeer was at her side, helping her organize the final details of her speech. Ready, my daughter? He asked, with his fatherly smile. More than ready, Elena replied, running her hand gently over her belly. The twins are also restless today. The ceremony began with a moving performance. The 50 graduates, representing 12 different countries, sang a song specially composed for the occasion, each verse in a different language, but all uniting in a universal chorus about dreams and transformation. Aisha and Maria Silas, now program coordinators, led the first part of the ceremony. Each graduate received not only their certificate, but also a special pendant, a small golden bridge symbolizing their journey of transformation. When it was time for Elena's speech, Daniel helped her onto the stage. In the soft light of the Dutch late afternoon, she began. 3 years ago, I was cleaning rooms at the Hotel Emperador, Mexico, whispering words in Dutch as I changed sheets. Today we are here in the heart of Amsterdam, celebrating not just a graduation, but the transformative power of dreams. She paused, her eyes scanning the audience. Bridges of Voices was born from a simple truth that my mother taught me. Knowledge is the only wealth that no one can take away from us. Each of you graduates is living proof of this truth. Halfway through her speech, Elena felt a sharp contraction. Her eyes met Daniel's in the front row, and a silent communication passed between them. Still she pressed on, determined to conclude this momentous occasion. Today, as I prepare to welcome my own children into this world, I realize that the true legacy of Bridges of Voices is not just the languages we learned, but the bridges we built, between cultures, between social classes, between dreams and reality. Carmen. Ortiz, who was watching the event live from Mexico, could not hold back her tears. On the big screen, several other program centers around the world watched the ceremony, connected by an invisible network of hope and transformation. And finally, Elena took a deep breath, feeling another contraction. I want to share with you the last words I found in my mother's diary. Love, my Elena, is the most universal language of all. It needs no translation, knows no borders, and has the power to change the world one word at a time. As she finished her speech, amidst emotional applause, Elena felt that the twins had chosen this symbolic moment to announce their arrival. With a serene smile, she whispered to Daniel, "I think the time has come." As Elena was lovingly escorted to the hospital, she could still hear the chorus of voices of the graduates singing a celebratory song in different languages. Professor van der Meer quickly organized a multilingual prayer chain in the Institute's garden. Hours later, in the hospital's maternity ward, Carmela and Gabriel Muller-Renault were born. The twins' first cry echoed like the most beautiful of melodies, a new language of love being added to the history of Ponte de Vos. And so, as the sun set over the canals of Amsterdam, a new generation arrived to continue the legacy of transformation through the power of words, knowledge, and unconditional love.